Hi, so today we're going to talk about books that I love to read because one of my guilty pleasures is buying books. I don't have space for books, but I keep buying books. And so anytime I go to Barnes & Noble, I always get coffee, I buy a new book, I sit down, read a couple chapters, go home, binge for the rest of the week. So these are books that I read. I primarily read fantasy, so if you're not into that, I'm sorry, but these are really great suggestions that I think you'll really enjoy. So my first book I want to recommend to you is one of my favorite authors, Brent. I found him when I was like 16, 17 at Books A Million, and I started reading his series, the Night Angel Trilogy, and then recently I bought the 10-year anniversary edition because I have a problem and I have to have it. It's black on black, which is the coolest of colors genre, I feel. Yeah, and it has just kind of illustrated pages and looks really, really good. I like it. So the Night Angel Trilogy follows the story of Azoth, also known as Kyler Stern later in the book. There are assassins in this world known as Wet Boys, and they have magical powers that they call talents. And eventually Kyler's master, Durzo Blend, who is like the top of the top Wet Boys, teaches him to become an assassin. So in this book, it follows the perspective of multiple people, and as the story comes to a head, especially in the third book, it's just amazing. There are some very graphic things in it, so if you're not into that, like some very sexually based kind of things like that, be careful if you're more sensitive to those areas, or gore or explicit detail into those things. One more from Brent Weeks, since I'm talking about him already, and I really love his work. I recommend the Lightbringer Series. The Lightbringer Series follows a character named Kip, and he's a thick boy. The world is divided into 7 satrapies, which are ruled by the Central Chromaria. It's like a powerful central government where people have magical abilities known as drafting. And drafting is just the act of harnessing and shaping light into like a physical form known as Luxon. And people who have this ability are known as drafters. So drafters draft physical light into Luxon. And some people can draft more than one color. Typically, basic is they can draft like green, blue, red, whatever. But some people can do more colors. Some people can do almost all colors. And the Chromaria is ruled by a man named the Prism, who can draft any light infinitely without any repercussions. Because if you overdraft light in this world, the colored halos around your eyes will break and you'll go into like a type of insanity. It's a really, really good book. There's a lot of like Christian imagery throughout the book. There's some also, again, it's Brent Weeks. Some of the details he gives in his books are very abrasive, but they also, I think, add a lot to the story. So if you can get past that, I think you'll really enjoy his work. Hi Brent Weeks, if you're watching this, I think your work is great. I'm sorry, my summary sucks. One of my all-time favorite books, series that is not yet completed, is The Name of the Wind. The Name of the Wind follows main character named Kavoth, who's like a legendary warrior, musician, adventurer. The story is narrated by Kavoth later in life. He's the owner of the Waystone Inn, and he's telling his story to a chronicler, a scribe who recounts history. In this world, magic and science are very closely related, but there's a greater magic known as naming. And naming is if you can speak the true name of something, you essentially have control over that thing. The characters are very well written. There are some parts of the plot that may seem slow, but it's so immersive and so just well done. Patrick Rothfuss's writing is so good. It's so good. He even has a side book called The Slow Regard of Silent Things. Follows the perspective of one of the more quirky enigmas of a character, and I thought it was very well done. A lot of people didn't like that one, but sometimes just books just aren't for some people. Read The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear, and eventually, hopefully in August, The Doors of Stone will come out. It's been a long wait. I've been waiting so long. I'm losing hope. Patrick Rothfuss, it's quarantine, please. I'm sorry, I know you hate it when people say this, but please finish the book. For me. For me. Oh, also, before I forget, in The Name of the Wind, there are a ton of fan theories right now for what's going to happen in the third book because it is so well written. There's so many herrings and clues and things connecting, and because you're trying to piece together old stories in the book, like people are telling oral traditions that over time become something different, and you're trying to find the original source of where these things came from. So cool. Highly recommend one more time. The next book I'd recommend is Dune by Frank Herbert. It's set in a futuristic time where the chief resource of the galaxy universe is a spice called melange. Melange. This rare and priceless resource is only found on the planet Arrakis, which is also known as Dune. In the book, there is a very prevalent need for water on this desert planet of Arrakis. It's constantly on the minds of the characters and the people involved. And not only is this desert planet very harsh, but it's also full of giant freaking sandworms. There is a ton of political battle and just things constantly happening between the Harkonnens, the Empire, the family Atreides, and the native people of the planet called the Fremen. And the story follows largely the story of Paul Atreides, who attempts to survive on this planet and defeat his enemies, and who have attacked his new home on Arrakis. This review belongs to the tribe. The final book that I would recommend is The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt by Edmund Morris. This book is completely different than what I usually read. It is not a fantasy book. This is a biography of one of the American presidents. And I didn't know anything about him until I read this book, and he is such a larger than life character. It follows him from childhood to his old age. Like, this guy was wild, yo. Like, even as a politician, he would invite other people over to his home and he would make them box or wrestle him, and then they would have discussions. He went to Cuba and walked in front of snipers. He lived out in the open range for a while and tracked down men in the wilderness, and just, oh man, he's the manliest of men. And I highly, 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 highly recommend you read about him. Just so cool. And if you would like more in-depth reviews in the future, I would love to try that. Yeah, we'll just see. I'm just kind of winging it still, and yeah, thanks for hanging out. And I'll talk to you later. Also, I'll show off my waifu bookmark. It's Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII.